to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item tonight is the approval of the minutes. We have looks like 6 separate meetings. Anyone have any items to remove?
Can we remove the May 5th executive session, please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the April 14th, 2014 executive session meeting minutes, the April 21st, 2014 regular meeting minutes, the April 21st, 2014 executive session meeting minutes, April 28th work session meeting minutes, and April 28th public hearing meeting on budget minutes.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our announcement tonight is being moved to July 21st, and we also have the open forum. Mr. Vengermish.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I attempted, I didn't succeed, to raise the issue of an earlier debate for town council candidates if there are more than 10 candidates. I think last time we had 11, and one was eliminated in the primary well before anyone had heard this person's viewpoints. This earlier debate may or may not be run by the League of Women Voters. If not, the town needs to step forward to do this. Everyone who puts his or her name forward deserves an equal opportunity to be heard. Every voter deserves to hear every one of the candidates before the runoff. And if we do have 11, which I think sounds like the maximum there would be, I think it's imperative that all 11 candidates be heard at one time so that the primary vote would at least be based on the voters having that opportunity to hear each of the 11.
Thank you. Mr. Wojciechowski.
Stan Wojciechowski in Narragansett. I was reading a paper where a past leader, a significantly important person, Fox, said he was experiencing serious financial problems and needed a loan to pay his bills. And then I also read in the paper another former town council person here and representative got a 20-year sentence for financial issues. This certainly leads me to believe that the state seems to be not qualified. People that don't seem to be qualified to handle financial issues. And what that brings me to locally is that, you know, first they go and tell us that we are in critical financial status we are in the town, and then they go and authorize us to all get loans, bonds. How can you do that? You know, I mean, we don't qualify. You know, if you looked at the finance side of it, why are you allowing the people to believe that we could or should be approved for borrowing with our critical status? And the state started it, and we're just following through on it. And the people out there voting are not aware, I don't think they're aware of this critical status. And I want to thank you, Councilman McLaughlin, for the Finance Committee issue where they're trying to get the word out on our financial condition. And I looked at the agenda on a computer, page 102. We have $105 million not funded on pension. And page 95 says the new contracts continue to be unsustainable. So we're continuing to go down this fiscally irresponsible road, if you will. And all I can ask you to do is stop. And the first thing to do is say, okay, no more borrowing, no more spending that's not an emergency. We have to make this, we just got to stop it now. The other question I had is I thought we were negotiating with the unions, the police and fire, I thought. And I'm hoping that we will get sustainable contracts. We will get contracts. We will make the changes in the contracts that we're working on so that we can pay him. Let's not go and have an agreement with the union with something that we can't pay for. That's irresponsibility. And I'm going to be asking everyone that's running for office, are we going to make the changes? Can we make the changes needed to do the right thing financially? Thank you.
Thank you.
James, the negotiations, just so Stan knows, negotiations going on right now are with 1033 and Council 94. So last year was police and fire.
Mr. Alba.
Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace. Personally, I don't see anything good that the union does, because the unions, to me, were run by racketeers. And I know that this was the jewelry center of the whole world right here in Narragansett, not Narragansett, but Rhode Island. And now it's not anymore. It's all overseas. So I don't see what they accomplish personally. Another thing, my nephew is going for a permit to build a house on in Narragansett, and he's going for a permit. Now Durkins, who's his landlord, claims he's going to be voting against it. Now that shouldn't be right. That's a conflict of interest. If you own a piece of property there that he's renting, well, he shouldn't have no right to go against anything that Iggy's wants to build, because that's a big drawing card, and people come from all over to go to Iggy's. They go there year round. In fact, they claim it's always summer at Iggy's, because people do travel for those doughboys and clam cakes and lobster rolls. So anyway, I should bring it out the fact that he should not be allowed to voice his opinion against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Waldman.
Open forum, right?
I'm sorry?
It's open forum?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Myron Waldman from 51 Overlook Road. 10 years ago, we had sewer placement under our road. We were promised a new road after that. It never happened. Our road went from being crowned to being concave, thus rendering a danger to snowplow blades, hence poor winter plowing. Over the years, I and my neighbors complained. There was no action. Last fall, the town began a process of replacing the 10th mile-long road with a new roadbed and gull-wing stormwater deflectors on the west side. The job was left unfinished with raised manholes and utility valves over the winter. Plowing must have been quite tedious. There was some mechanical damage to this equipment. In the spring, the Department of Public Works attempted to complete the road, applying final aggregate and membrane. They paved the top, sealed, and the surface, but they left a huge, dangerous trench between the front yards and the town road. We are now approaching 9 months from the start of the project, and the road is still not finished. 2 months ago, I voiced my complaint in person to the DPW and was told by a group of 4 or 5 people that were in the office that would be, quote, a few weeks. When told how many weeks is that, the answer is a few. Yeah, you know, a few. You know what that is, quote. Nothing happened. I complained 2 weeks ago and was told that either Michael DeSicco, superintendent, or Stephen Daniel, I'm sorry about the pronunciations, of the highway foreman would contact me. Neither did. Last week, the office said work was scheduled for this coming week. Neither I nor my neighbors believe that we will see workers during next week. Highways are a key indicator of how a town is managed. Dealing with the Narragansett DPW is not a pleasant experience. They don't seem to consider taxpayers as their customers. We are, and as customers, we have a right to ask questions, to complain, and be treated to honest and accurate answers. Town department managers need to understand that they represent the quality and moral values of our town leadership and the general public. I'm not convinced that this is happening in Narragansett. I feel with proper training, it should happen. And by the way, I'm thankful for this public forum, which is televised, and there are reporters. I consider this sort of our local social network and an opportunity to make things better, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
So Pam, could we check into that for Byron? Byron, the name of the road.
The road? The name of the road?
Overlook? Is that what it was?
Overlook.
Overlook. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll do that right away.
And Ms. Nolan, just for road discussions, can you give us a short explanation of the chip sealing process that's going on a few roads in town? We've got a few complaints about that.
Yeah, for the last couple of weeks, I have done this at least once a day. Chip sealing is a process by which the town puts stone on the road, followed by, or I should say first, there's an adhesive substance that's dropped on the road with the stones on top of it. What happens after the stones are dropped is that it cures for a couple of weeks, 2 weeks. After it's cured, that means you've driven over it and packed down the road. The DPW will send in the street sweepers to collect all of the loose rocks. At that point, it should look like your road again. And that's the answer to all the questions about chip sealing.
So the dust and the loose rocks
It
are
won't-
just impermanent.
No, I think people probably should have already found that it's far better than when it first got put down.
I'm sorry, I missed how long the rock stays down before they sweep it away. Does
2
it differ?
weeks.
2 weeks for every time?
2 weeks.
Okay.
And this is part of the maintenance project, not the bond issue.
Correct. This is not part of the bond issue. Right.
I think we were remiss, I was remiss earlier, not to mention or have a moment of silence for Barbara Riley. She passed away this weekend. She's a longtime Narragansett resident, wife of Thomas Sr., mother of Thomas Jr. and Kevin. She worked at URI for 28 years, and I believe her wake is going on right now, so we're going to have a moment of silence for Miss Riley. Thank you very much. Looks like there's no further open forum. Move on to the consent agenda. Anyone have any items to remove? Motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move that motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to new business. A motion to authorize the town manager to solicit engineering services for structural design of the Earls Court Water Tower.
Move that motion.
Second.
Mr. Wojciechowski. And I think the answer to your question is It's no town funds to be expended on this project
I
right
did
now.
look that up, you know I couldn't miss that one. I would just want to create an alert here. I hope that these people are not misled into thinking that town tax funds will be used on this project. It's a very worthwhile project, and it's a nice thing to happen. I'd love to see it, but it seems that the way things are, all of a sudden the town is expected to kick in taxpayer dollars. Not now, okay? Not now. Let's get the message out before they make the request and we have a big fight. Let's try and all volunteer funds, Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 9, a motion to approve the contract for professional services with Moody's Investors Service and authorize the town manager to sign the contract agreement after review by the town solicitor.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Could we have a little description of this?
Laura? She's making her way up to the podium.
This is a contract with Moody's for our bond rating for the bond that we just passed. It's a contract, so it needs to go before you for authorization for the town manager to sign. Prior service, it's completed, not ongoing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Nay.
Oh, all opposed, sorry. 4-1. Number 10, a motion to approve the renewal of the Infinite Visions Budget Sense software maintenance agreement with Tyler Technologies, Inc. in the amount of $16,996.83 for fiscal year 2014-2015.
I'll move that motion.
Second?
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 11, a motion to approve the fund balance policy and adopt the associated resolution delegating the authorization of assigning fund balance to the town manager.
I'll move that motion.
Second?
Discussion? Could we just have a short explanation of this one as well?
The adoption of this policy and resolution is to set in writing what we do in practice with our fund balance. It is basically a policy stating types of fund balance that GASB has already ruled that we had to accomplish in our audit report. The one area that you may be interested in is setting aside an unassigned fund balance range between 10 and 16%, with caveats that if it goes below, that there be a plan presented to the council for anything that, if the fund balance goes below 10%, if it goes above the 16%, that it also come to council that it can only be spent for 3 particular purposes. One would be one-time expenditures, the other would be to leave the fund balance, and I'm sorry, there is a third option in there. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. The third option on the fund balance if it goes over the 16%.
So Laura,
Yeah.
Fine with the policy as it is, but did we think about even a broader application to wrap in the debt ratio, so debt to fund balance?
That would be in our debt policy. This is just a fund balance
Do we need to have
policy.
both, I guess is the...
We already have a debt policy.
No, I know, but so wouldn't the fund balance sort of be linked to, wouldn't there be a percentage that would apply based on how much debt we have? So wouldn't you make it a ratio equal to compensate for increasing debt. You'd want to push it towards the higher end of the 16 is my point, right? So the
Well,
linkage, I guess.
The debt service policy is a percentage of your general operating budget. And so if you have higher debt, then of course your reserve, if you want to call it your undesignated, unassigned reserve, would be higher as your debt goes higher. And yes, you probably want to stay towards the higher range, which is 16%, which is 2 months of your operating budget, as opposed to the lower end, which is the 10.
Yeah, it's a wide range depending on how many dollars we're talking about at any given time. So I'm happy to pass it now, but I think maybe we want to be a little bit more precise and refine the levels we want to target.
Absolutely, and we can also address it within the debt policy.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
In terms of this range, because we haven't voted on the debt policy, this council has not yet. So the 10 to 16, so I just want to make sure what the trigger points are. So if we go below 10% of fund balance, what then happens?
The town manager has to come and inform the council. If you look at the policy.
Okay, so you would, right, so you would come to us because you would say we need to, so you'd ask for money to be put then
Yes.
into the fund balance.
And likewise, if it is over 16.67, I would come to you at that point too and tell you that we might want to take action on that.
And what's our fund balance right now for this year? It's around 4 million, is that correct?
Laura, are we still below 10%? We're playing catch-up. We're hoping to, but I'm not sure that we're caught up quite yet.
As of 6/30/13, we were below the 10%. I do anticipate at 6/30/14, we will be at 10% or slightly above. I will look at fund balance, not on an ongoing basis, but on an annual basis at the end of every fiscal year with the audit. That's when we would look at this range and make decisions going forward. Also, probably at the budget process to know what we can allocate towards the next fiscal year budget.
My concern is if we pass a policy on this front, we have other things going on, right? We have the pension payments that we have to make every year, and it's a lot of tying of hands. We say on this front, we're going to put a fund balance of this amount, 10 to 16. Then we have ARC payments we have to make. So I just am concerned about taking some of the discretion away from the council, because if you have emergencies, I think I like the idea of, I made a big point that we didn't have a fund balance, that I never voted on a fund balance percentage before. So I guess my point is I think I'd like to have a little more discretion than to say 10 to 16 and tie us into a policy.
Well, if you look at the 3 caveats that I put there is the 3 options you have, if it goes over the 16%, was committed to a reserve, do a one-time expenditure, or keep it in fund balance to be accumulate interest.
But it's
So
more likely that we're going to be below 10 than above 16.
10 is the low range
That's
of
right.
unassigned fund balance that I recommend. I do not recommend going below the 10%.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Professor Vangermish.
In a stunning age discrimination move, the Finance Committee said the oldest person has to stay, and report that we are quite happy with the fund balance report done by Laura. And also, and Glenna makes a very, very important point that the Finance Committee is very, very concerned about, and that is the definition of debt, and which I think the board has taken a much broader and a correct view of what long-term debt is, that this does call for a change in the debt policy. The debt policy that we currently have is just for outstanding bonds payable, does not include the other long-term debt, and hence is something that should be addressed by the board. It's not exactly an easy topic to do, but clearly, if we have changed our definition of what long-term debt is, correctly changed it, we really have to rethink our debt policy, which is only talking about bonds payable outstanding.
Thank you. Mr. Wojciechowski.
I was just hoping to, I'm hoping to understand the surplus issue. I'm just hoping to understand that. I think if I'm confused, I'm sure many people are confused. And so now at the end of the year, we have a surplus call unassigned. And while I have a lot of confidence in the town manager that she will do the right thing, but I would hope to see anything that she does as far as signing monies to at least pass through here, maybe on a consent agenda or something, so at least we can watch and see what's being done with the money. But also, I just don't, at the end of the year when we have this balance, $4 million or whatever it is, what do we do with this balance? What is this carried over to next year? Or is it sitting there? What is this balance doing?
You keep it in the bank, Stanley.
It just stays there?
Yeah.
So you just keep on cycling it?
In case of an emergency where you don't have enough cash flow, it's like capital, right? Or
Yeah.
equity in your home,
That's right.
right? You need to preserve a certain cushion in case of events beyond your control.
Because, and that's, I guess that's a matter of, so many times during the year, let's say, I hear, well, we have a fund balance to pay for this. And the item that comes up, to me, doesn't seem to be an emergency. You know, it's in the fund balance.
Well, that's a different issue than how much do you preserve as a cushion, right? That's about whether the item has merit to be funded from there.
I know, and that's what I want to address pretty much is, if we're gonna, as long as we're rolling this over, then I don't feel so bad. I said, okay, we're rolling over this fund balance, so we're just holding it for emergencies. But I don't want it to be used for non-public safety or disaster. You know, somehow I'd like to have itemized that this balance will only be used for emergencies, health, safety, and welfare of our citizens or whatever, not for nice things to happen. That's my problem. And I don't know how we can control that if we lose. I want to hear where it's going.
That's why you come here every week, isn't it?
Well, that's why I was a little disturbed at this. I said, well, the town manager's going to do what she's going to do, and I trust that she will do the right thing. But still, I want to be aware of what she's doing to make sure that it is an emergency situation like Sandy or whatever. Other than that, we're not going to spend money on, well, a tower or wherever. You know, there's always an alcohol issue, whatever. There's an issue out there. We need the fund balance to do it. No, I don't want to do it, you know. And that's the issue that I'm worried about. And I was hoping that if this policy, at least, maybe you ought to just try this for 1 year. Let's not have it a permanent policy. Let's say, okay, let's assign it to her for 1 year to evaluate her, to evaluate her performance and see whether the emergencies really exist or not. You know, I don't know. What causes us to use? So we will only use this for emergencies. We're not going to use this for pensions or other issues. We don't use the fund balance. Where do we use this fund? So it's only emergencies.
Shouldn't be. You won't hear me voting on a non-emergency out of fund balance.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Please.
I don't have that kind of power, Stanley. I simply don't. It has to come before the
I know.
council. I simply can't do what you're saying.
Okay.
That can't happen, okay?
Okay.
We're very, very conservative in the way we look after municipal money and taxpayers' money. I simply don't have the power to do that.
Okay.
It has to come before the council.
So it still has to come, whatever you do,
Absolutely.
it's still going to come
Absolutely.
here and we're going to see it.
Absolutely.
Okay. I feel better. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alba.
when I mentioned before about building a pier, he says, well, we haven't got enough money for it. Well, if we get all this money sitting around not doing anything, it would be quite a good deal to build a pier and extend our tourist season into the fall and winter when people can go fishing off the pier, and it'd be quite a thing to have, and we did have it at one time. So if we have got the money, why don't we do that? Thank you.
Thank you. So there's no further discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Did you vote? Yeah, I did. I said aye. Oh, sorry. 4-1. Motion carries. Number 12, a motion to award the bid for purchase of Harbor Master boat, motor, trailer, and accessories to the sole bidder, Romarine LLC, at their bid price of $58,165.
I'll move that motion.
Second?
Discussion.
This money is, again, not taxpayer money, as it's explained in the staff report. This is money that was allocated by the government for the Port Marine Storage Facility at Galilee. It's money that's left over, and they asked if we had a use for it, and they approved our buying the Harbor Master's boat with it. And the Chief of Police has assured me that the Harbor Master's boat is way beyond its lifetime, and we needed to replace this. We've needed for several years to replace this boat. So here's the source of funding. It's not going to go back to the state. We're going to keep this money and buy our Harbor Master a new boat, if you approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Number 13, a motion to discuss options and possible action for the Dillon Rotary.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Ms. Bonanno?
We had talked about it at the last meeting, maybe there would be an option, since we maintain the Dillon Rotary, to purchase it, and it looks like there are a lot of different options. I mean, appreciate all the research on that. I thought maybe that the state would say, you know, here you go, buy it for $1, but it looks like it's a little more complicated than that, but there was some options that were put out by Jeff, and I didn't know if people wanted to keep it the way it was, status quo. There were a couple of other options he had on there, the easement. And just know that Mr. Wright has done a wonderful job with the flag program there, and I know that Park and Rec has maintained over a number of years, and that's what we had talked about, like, why don't we own that? But I don't want it to be more complicated than that. So I saw the options, and I didn't know how the rest of the council felt.
If you would like further explanation, Jeff Cesarin is here. He did prepare these options, and he's very familiar with them. Jeff, would you mind coming up and talking about the options for the Dillon Rotary? He's the one that warned me about, if we purchase it, we're going to have to be careful of the curbing. We're going to have to always maintain that curbing. And his recommendation, and like it's stated in the staff report, the state can't simply hand it over. They have to put it out so that anybody else that wants to bid on it can.
Which could be
So
scary.
Jeff has convinced me that probably the smartest option is adopt a spot, but I'll let him explain it.
Working backwards, the easiest solution to something like this is the adopt a spot one, if you wish to take any action at all. You know, the null option of doing nothing still exists as well, which means that Steve's crew continues to mow the grass, and Ted continues to maintain the flags, and you know, it's been that way for many years. It can continue that way for many years. But if you wish to formalize it, the adopt-a-spot's the simplest way to do it. It does not cost us anything to get the insurance binder from the trust. It's no different than, you know, any other piece of property, except that it's even less of a burden insurance-wise because we don't own it. You know, the other options that I mentioned in there, as far as acquiring the land or easements, both involve some type of transaction with the state where we would have to give them money. We would have to have the land appraised, they would have to declare it surplus, and then they would either lease it to us or sell it to us.
So you think adopt-a-spot's the best? Either keep it the way it is or do the adopt-a-spot?
Yeah, the adopt-a-spot is pretty manageable. I spoke to DOT about the process just to make sure that I wasn't missing anything either, and I won't speak for them, but their indication to me seemed that this would be something that they would bless pretty quickly.
Jeff, are they, to that end, I guess, are they pushing us toward a formalization, or are they content to let things stay the way they are, or what'd you get from them?
They haven't said anything to me, Glenna, about pushing it one way or the other. I don't know if they've spoken to Pam or to Steve about it.
They did speak to me earlier and really wanted us to do something to make it more formal. It definitely is an informal gentleman's agreement that the state has with Mr. Wright, and they really would like to make it more formal. You know, you are going to have to decide which option that you like the best.
The adopt-a-spot process basically means that we have to prepare a maintenance plan, which is typically just putting down in writing what we already do. That the town will mow the grass, the town will maintain the flower beds, we will pick up dead branches, et cetera, et cetera. And we present that to the state along with the insurance certificate. They will process it, and we'll probably have an answer back to you before the next meeting, if that's the direction that you choose.
Sounds good.
That came up first to buy it, but what about the easement option? Could we at least explore discussions, Mark, maybe with the state, having it, which would be a little stronger than adopt-a-spot, but we would have a property interest, but yet we wouldn't have the liability?
Yeah, I think if you direct us to, we can make an inquiry of the state as to whether they're interested in discussing an easement possibility in lieu of an adopt-a-spot, or to give you an alternative. I mean, that's something we could pursue. I'm not sure how much liability savings we get out of it, Matt, because if we take on the easement with whatever our defined responsibilities are, we'd probably assume much of the same liability, or the state will try and push as much as
They would have to say that, though, right? Yeah. I kind of think those are the two options that maybe we look at, and maybe because the easement would be a little stronger. So that was kind of, when I looked through it, I thought that was the best, looking at what your report said.
I guess my only question, Matt, would be, where do we need more strength than we would have with an adopt-a-spot? The adopt-a-spot agreement, as we craft it, and if you'd like, we can craft it and bring it back to you to bless before we send up to the state. But the adopt-a-spot agreement would stipulate exactly what the town would do. Would we mow the lawn? Would we replace the flagpoles when they need to be replaced? You know, you can get into as little or as much detail as you wish. I'm just not sure where we need to have a stronger document than that.
Well, I think it would I think the adopt-a-spot would just be a contract, while the easement would obviously be, it would be a property interest that we would have. It'd be recorded. And so I thought that would be, when I was reviewing it, I thought that would kind of be the best of both worlds. That's just my initial instinct. I mean, I think I'd like to at least explore the option with the state, is what I'm saying, on the easement versus the adopt-a-spot.
I hear Matt, but I get concerned on the easement, because when you read about the implications there, you've got to appraise the land, you've got to sign a lease. There's a charge for that option, which, to Mark's point, I'm not sure you get that much more out of it. And quite honestly, I mean, to Jeff's point, if you're broadly in a lease, which is probably heavily negotiated, because you'll want to narrow it to the point where you would only declare your adopt-a-spot responsibilities, it just doesn't feel like you get a lot of value out of that lease charge.
I'm just thinking that if the state, let them say what they want out of it, right? We haven't really asked those questions, right? We just have a general conversation. So, see, if they would not give us the things that we want, then we would go down to the adopt-a-spot. That's all I'm saying.
I don't understand what the problem is. Am I missing something here? Or why we have to change what we already have, Matt? That's what I don't understand. What's the reasoning for us to change? Because it's an absolutely beautiful place. I mean, everything seems to be, the grass is always cut, and it's clean and neat, and it seems to work for us. Why do we want to change this? I don't understand that.
So I think because we were talking about maybe a possibility to own, but to Jeff's point, if adopt-a-spot is the way we accomplish having a little more ownership to it, and we do our responsibilities, I think that's fine too. I don't know that we have to purchase it. I think that was one of the things we said, if they could give it to us and it was easy, but I don't want it to become this complicated idea, you know what I mean? And if we get into a liability, or, I mean, I'm happy with adopt-a-spot if we
It
It's
sounds
a
like
written agreement.
It sounds like if they're pushing us to do something,
Thing.
and the Adopt-a-Spot gets you as close to where you are today, and you can be very clear about roles and responsibilities of who does what, so there's no debate among townspeople, among the council, among the town. It's tightened up in terms of clarity.
Yeah.
So there's no mystery in terms of whose responsibility what is.
Yeah, I
That's the
think
value I see in it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's fine. And that sounds like it's the recommendation of the town, correct? The Adopt-a-Spot? Would that be, Jeff?
Yeah, if you'd like, we can craft the draft Adopt-a-Spot maintenance agreement, which basically stipulates what we agree to do, or what we're asking the state to give us, or formally give us permission to do, which is essentially what we have been doing.
Good.
But we can craft that document for you, and that's going to be simple. It's 2 or 3 paragraphs at the most, explaining what our level of effort and what our level of maintenance will be there. And I guess, Doug, to your point, the benefit to the Adopt-a-Spot is as much to the state at this point as it is to us, because for all intents and purposes, we could walk away from it tomorrow. We could say that we've been maintaining it out of the goodness of our hearts for many, many years, as has Ted.
That's right.
But we're under no obligation to maintain it because it's state land.
That's right.
We can walk away from it. As much as I love my brothers and sisters at DOT, they won't maintain it to the degree that we do. So if we do walk away from it, it won't look as nice as it does now. So I think that's probably the upside for the state. If I'm sitting in the state's shoes, I'm thinking, if the town will agree to this Adopt-a-Spot, then we know it'll continue to look like the jewel that it is.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Wright?
Ted Wright, 2 Garden Court, Narragansett. I think I caused some of this problem when the Adopt-a-Spot person called me and wanted to know if I wanted my name on the Rotary, and I told him no. Do you want to have Adopt-a-Spot named after you? And I said no. I thought the sign was pretty evident what I wanted. The sign was originally built with great difficulty. It went through 3 different directors of the Department of Transportation. Donnie Boffey laid out the program for me. He got fired. He did hire Gates Layton to locate the sign, a young fellow from Narragansett, Bourbonnais boy. He actually took my sketch and made what is there today. Everything was done with the state in a way that was very nice. It got shut down 3 times by the rights-of-way. It is the only sign in the state of Rhode Island that's in the middle of a right-of-way. It has a lot of interesting little aspects to it. Jeff Early from the Water Department actually ran under the road, wire for the lighting, water to water it. 3,200 bricks donated by Goriella from the Peacedale Mill. 2 granite caps from a gentleman who was ahead of your planning board, Bob Campione, in memory of his sons. It was built as a celebration, not a memorial. That was the reason for always flying the different flags. When I was with the chamber, we'd have different people that come from all over the country. We had the Australians at Fort Varnum. We had Canadians coming in by the busloads, schools and things coming in here. And that put the whole flag process in the way it worked. I had 7 brothers, every branch of the service, one of them worked in. So then the flags come up. The Armenian flag, when it flew, I took a picture of it, sent it to the Armenian National Group, went worldwide. That's what that was all about. It was the entrance to Narragansett. And as somebody mentioned, it's beautiful. Thanks to Steve, 4 years ago, they started mowing it. Up to that time, I paid to have it mowed with the help of one of the Ferrara boys, just to take and have an entrance. And when I come down Boston Neck Road, even this evening, and I take a look at the state entrance into our town. Good God in heaven, what in the hell is going on? That is a disaster from the beach, letting those people try and walk across that street with the bushes higher than most of the kids. It is dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. They cannot maintain their property. That's why that rotary is the way it is today. I don't want anything from it, except to be left alone, do what I've always loved to do, make a celebration out of it. I know we got in trouble over the Wounded Warrior. Now we have a POW flag. I had a POW flag that flew there for years. I would rather see it go back to its original entrance to Narragansett. We have the POW flag in the Veterans Park. We should take care of that. And working with Steve, he's a great guy to work with. The place looks fantastic. And I'm tickled to death. But the adopter spot is great. But the sign says it. That's all it needs. That's it. Leave it alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe you can bring something back, Jeff, so we could look at it. For today, do we have to vote on it now? Or can you bring back something?
It's up to you. I can bring it back at the
Yeah.
next meeting with basically what the state will require us to submit, which is a maintenance plan of what we propose to take formal responsibility
Okay.
for.
I mean, I'm fine with that. That's,
Make sense?
makes sense. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Ted, for all your hard work on that. Thank you.
Move on to number 14, a motion to discuss options and possible action for consideration of a town sign that would be located in a safe environment.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Ms. Bonanno.
So, at the EDC meeting, it came up that as much as we like economic development, that there are tons of signs at the Dillon Rotary that are distracting and could be dangerous. So, just wanted to investigate an opportunity where there would be some good signage, and I know that Tony Santilli said he would be happy to look around the town and see if there was a good place where we could share signage. So it's very crowded over there. There's kindergarten registration amongst a million different activities. So I just said to the committee, I'm happy to put something on and ask the manager or Tony to look at a possible option for signage. That I didn't have any specific idea behind the signage, but just that there were so many signs over there and it was getting distracting for the people that are going around. And I know that Ricky Lima wanted to speak about an idea on signage. I don't know. He had just mentioned before.
Can I
the
say
meeting.
something?
Sure.
In May 6, 2013, you approved a Narragansett Lions Club donate a community bulletin board in Sprague Park along Kingstown Road, subject to approval of state and local regulations. Steve, it had your name on it. I'm just wondering what that, you must have discussed this and. That's where this came from, Steve.
Good evening. This was actually presented by the Lions Club back last year. They were actually came to me and asked to put up a bulletin board that was supposed to be done by ABCOR this past spring, but for some reason has not been done at this time. I'm not sure if you saw this diagram. It was approved by the council back in May. If I can have permission, I'll just bring this up to you. This is supposed to be near the Indian head.
And so just what happened with that?
But that was similar to some type of community board that they were looking to do along that road near the Indian on Sprague Park coming into town. Again, he hasn't built it as of the date, and they were going to donate that, but it was approved by the council at that time.
So, Steve, who would manage the board? So, like, say I see there are school activities that want to be posted, or there's town, like, anybody could put their stuff on it?
Well, again, as long as it's a nonprofit, we would would fall on. It would fall on the Parks Department to do that.
Adopted. Hopefully a policy would be adopted as to how you would utilize this sign and what kind of an organization you'd have to be to get something on the sign. I can see it being meaning we're going to have to work on, if we adopt this and we get this built, I think we're gonna have to have, you know, a sign policy, maybe even a committee to decide what goes up.
Oh. I don't know, that looks like a pretty nice design.
It makes it very difficult. Right now, like when we put signs up at the beach at the end of Narragansett Avenue, it's nonprofit for races, and that's what, you know, that's what our criteria is. We only leave it up for a week before the race and 3 days after the race. And you've seen those signs, but again, we try to keep it minimal and again, only for a week before and 3 days after, but only for nonprofits and for road races and for fundraisers. But that diagram was the prototype for that particular sign.
Nice.
Again, it wasn't built, and the Lions Club was donating that, and unfortunately, they weren't able to get it done before this summer.
So is that something we'd pursue, or, I mean,
As far as I know, they still have it on the drawing board to do. I can't speak for the Lions Club. I know that they were trying to get them to do that job for the summer, and it's been postponed until the fall.
all right, so maybe in the investigation, that could be a part of the investigation, Pam or Steve.
I can still pursue that. It's just that with everything going on right now, it wasn't on my...
Yeah. It just came up at EDC, and
Sure.
people were asking about it, so I thought, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. So you could investigate that then.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Lima, welcome.
Richard Lima, Mumford Road. I think, you know, what I was mentioned or told was, down at the Rotary, you will notice that there is a tremendous amount of signs during this time of the year. They're not on the Rotary where Ted Wright's sign is, and I hope that we don't get into having signs in that area. But there is an area that does have signs, and it can be clustered at times. And some of the signs are, you know, presented properly, and some fall down and get blown all over the place. There is electricity at the Rotary, and there is electricity off to the side in the Kenny Hathaway complex that is there. So I don't know if down the road, if we do want to get into a modernized type sign for that area, could be looked into. I don't know with EDC or whatever. But again, a policy and procedure would have to be put in place on the sign. I think it would be, you know, nonprofits. We have a lot of organizations in the town, I think, that would want to use this. I think that they could bring up some funding for it, and I think that we could keep it nice, clean, and professional looking. So if somebody wants to look into that, that would be fantastic. And I think that that would be the answer for that location. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
Good evening, thank you. The area that disturbs me with signage, I think that was the original discussion, was the temporary signs that are placed willy-nilly, and there were 8 of them for several weeks, on and off, behind or before, whichever direction you're coming from, 108 Wakefield, to go down 108 Point Judith Road, or that's where you see, if you're going to make the left to go down Kingstown Road to the pier, is where this proliferation of signs, all sizes, all shapes, all colors. It's not only visual pollution, it's unattractive, and it's a public safety issue. I've had people from out of town say, wow, you know, I wanted to stop and see what was going on, because I thought might be something at the beach, and the schools has registration. Someone had a furniture for sale sign. We had a wellness center sign. These were businesses. There's got to be rules and regulations and consistency in the first place. And the number of signs are unacceptable, unattractive, all colors, sizes, and shapes. So then that, I think, evolved into a sign where the community could have a site where they felt like the Towers has an event tonight, or there's a film at the beach, or there's, I mean, those kinds of things. But obviously, as Mrs. Nolan has expressed, and I'm sure you're all aware, is going to take a policy to deal with that. My main concern was initially the proliferation of signs that had no business being in that little piece of land where people come into town and have to go either straight ahead or make their left and go down Kingstown Road, and they're saying, oh, there's something going on, should I know about it? Not safe, not good. That was my point.
Thank you.
Carol.
Thank you.
Mr. Wojciechowski.
Steve kind of prodded me here. Anyway, yeah, I love the EDC, but don't give us another job. You know, are we going to have another job? So now we have to hire some more people?
No.
No? I mean, I hope the sign...
She'll investigate it, won't
I
question
hope
anything.
the sign will be staffed or taken care of by volunteers from the EDC or whoever wants one. Whoever wants one will pay. We will not have our people go out there and have to deal with a sign. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen. So, yeah,
She's going to investigate it. The town manager will see what she comes up with as far as the signs. I have all the confidence in the world. She'll do it cheap.
That's right. We don't want
That's
any
right.
cost to the taxpayer for
I
the sign
trust
to the
her.
EDC,
I trust
you
her.
know? But let them sign up to take care of the sign. Thank you. Thank you.
Quick question, though, to Stanley's point. So totally support the building of the new sign and getting, you know, a safer place. How do you prevent people from just going and putting up signs? And is it like now the expectation that Parks and Rec will go pull them up?
No, looking at that diagram, it
You
looks
take them down. You take them down immediately. That works in every community I've ever been
Yeah,
in.
no, that's
what
is
Tony
that
did,
now part of
actually.
Steve's job?
And I've been told that the DPW has been told to take all the signs down at the Dillon Rotary.
Oh,
I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how this happened. I don't know who told them not to. But they've been ordered not to put any more signs up by Mr. Santilli.
It's an
So
ordinance.
maybe
They're not
that's,
supposed
you
to
know,
have signs there.
it's an ordinance.
Yeah, they're not supposed to have signs there.
Yeah, and so,
it's already an ordinance?
Yeah, Tony took them all away. They're not supposed to be there.
Huh.
So I think to Carol's point, that it's unsafe if they figure out if the Lions Club wants to donate one, give us one or whatever, I think that would be safe and
Yeah.
nice and attractive and maybe even free.
So it's already somebody's job to take it down, they just haven't done it?
well,
Or
it's
they've been
been-
instructed not to?
It's, right, it's been approved over the years, because I was kind of shocked at being a newcomer to town, that this was allowed, because I spent a long time out on the Cape, believe me. That's where we dealt with the signs and all the sign issues. And the quickest way to stop it is to remove them immediately. But other than that, I want to warn you that any kind of sign we put up is going to be very, very popular and in demand. And schools will use it a lot.
Yeah.
But so will the PTAs and for their bake sales, the Lions Club, the Historical Society, all the groups will want to use it. So it will be a very popular sign. So we're going to have to try to be pretty thorough with any kind of policy that we do develop. I have dealt with this extensively when I had time on Cape Cod, and it can turn into a nightmare real quick. So that's why I'm cautioning about it. Just one caveat would be the sign policy. But I would say that if you agree, we keep the signs off the Rotary. It is, I've had so many people come up to me and say that it's a distraction and it's dangerous.
Mr. Wright.
What happened to that diagram? Did it go away?
Steve said.
Hard to believe it. Years ago, Clarkson Collins, when I was building my sign, he decided to put up a community sign where most of the signs are. It was there for maybe 18 months, and along came a nice Buick and took it down. I took the sign and took it over to the highway department. That had to have been at least 5 years ago. But then, for real, they tried to put them on my circle, and I've always gone around. And yesterday I took a whole back seat of my car, and I took all the signs that were out there early in the morning, and they're all down in my dumpster. I don't mind telling people that's where they end up, because I was told they don't belong there, so get them off, and that's what I do. I was doing very good until I got a hold of one sign that was a little bigger than I was, and I dislocated my shoulder on it. So that put me in a holding pattern, and they really went out of hand. But I've noticed in the last week or so, damn, that place looks beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony did say there was an ordinance, remove them, and I know you can work with them, Pam and Steve and the Lions Club.
There is an
Good.
off-premises ordinance that prohibits advertising in places that you're not located. That's what Tony's relying upon. Ted's right. I just told Pam we did have a bulletin board, I think a policy to try and eliminate the multiplicity of signs that existed there years ago, and then the bulletin board disappeared due to an accident. Now the signs are back. So it's the suggestion right now of pursuing possibility of an alternate location, or in renewing that location, we can dig out the old policy. It was nonprofits, the school system, municipal notices. You had to get approval to put them on the bulletin board.
Sounds good.
Great. Ready to move on? All right, number 15, a motion to introduce, read, and accept a resolution imposing parking restrictions and regulations for the Scarborough Hills area in the town of Narragansett in accordance with the Code of Ordinances.
I'll move that motion.
Second?
Discussion. Ms. Bonato?
So, Pam, can you, or Dean, can you just sort of give a history, and then we'll go into just kind of, Dean, I know you got a good history on the different restrictions of parking in the town.
I'm going to have to rely on the police chief for that one. I don't have
He's an
any
expert at it.
Thank you, Dean.
Well, as the President found out the other day, looking at our parking ordinances, I don't know if anyone's an expert because they're quite large and confusing. The history behind this in Scarborough Hills was when the state of Rhode Island started to charge just a parking fee to get on the state beaches, but no entry fee to walk on. It forced all of the daily commuters to start parking in the neighborhoods. Scarborough Hills, of course, was immediately affected, as Knowles Way is part of that area. After several council meetings, it was decided that the policy that we have in place now, the parking permit only, 9 to 4, in the Scarborough Hills neighborhoods, up to Sewell Road, and that was kind of the line of demarcation, has worked very well. I went down there Sunday. The overflow lot was just about full, and there appeared to be a lot of open spaces on the side streets in Scarborough Hills. Knowles Way, of course, did have some traffic, some parking on both sides. Unintended consequences, if you make a line at Sewell Road, they'll walk further. If you went over Sprague Bridge at any point in time this weekend, it was probably the most cars I have ever seen in any time I've lived in this town. And that's not all just at the mouth of the river, believe it or not. They will park there and walk to the town beach to not have to pay the daily parking fee. So Knowles Way being a state road, we have the authorization from the state, Steve Pristawa, that we can post and limit or affect parking on state roads as long as it doesn't restrict for one particular group of people. So that does allow permit parking, as the lower end has. It takes the revision of the ordinance by you to make it no parking, permit only, 9 to 4 during the permit season, May through September, up to 108. And churches are exempted under ordinance during any religious ceremony that they're not bound by those restrictions.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief.
Well, basically, the problem is July and August, I would guess.
Yes.
For 8 weeks, we're going to change an ordinance. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't make sense. And then a lot of those days, probably weekdays, it isn't a problem. It's probably a bigger problem on Saturdays and Sundays, I would guess.
It's more of a weekend concern. This weekend, which should have been 3 but was only 2 days, the CSOs wrote almost $6,000 worth of parking tickets in town, and 19 of those were in the Scarborough Hills area.
So, Dean, it's only halfway, so it could be the whole road then, right? I mean, is that a big change in the ordinance? I mean, is it a big deal?
It's a revision by
Yeah,
you.
yeah, okay, because I'm just, makes sense. I know how they all trickled into the neighborhoods. And I know that Mr. Kennedy wanted to speak especially about a situation where his mother was, so thank you.
Good evening, Council. John Kennedy, 19 Pilgrim Ave. Yeah, as Sue mentioned, it isn't just July and August, and We own a property on Knowles Way. Knowles Way is a very heavily traveled road, spring, summer, fall, and it was probably late April, May of last year, I witnessed my mother get involved in an accident backing out of our property on Knowles Way and get hit by a RIPTA bus. I don't think anybody wants to see that, right? But the problem is that the traffic and people that are parking on Knowles Way to walk to the beach to save that fee, that they're parking right up to the curb cuts of your driveway. So it makes it very hazardous for anybody, whether you're pulling out onto Knowles Way or backing out. Now, my mother was backing out, and that's another story. But it's a safety concern. And I think when the initial ordinance was approved for half of Knowles Way up to Sewell Road, you just kicked the can down the street, literally. And that problem just got pushed up between Sewell and Point Judith. So, you know, it is a safety concern, not only for family, but just guests and other people that live on that street. In that area, there's families, properties, for one reason or another, don't have driveways. They can't find parking for their own residents. It's a real issue, and I don't think you've seen me before the council on any issues. So this is an issue, and respectfully, I ask consideration for it.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
To John's point, so you kick the can, right? Does this, I mean, do we already have something on Francis and coffee, like in the original, all of those, that box up top? Isn't that what's going to happen? Is they're going to go to the right instead of right on? So should you just wrap all that square in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to wrap it all in, because then they have to go to the beach and pay instead of clogging up the neighborhoods. I mean,
I think to John's point, I mean, the more, it's like, you know, what they call that, like the balloon with the water. You squeeze one end and it comes out the other end, right?
So if we did the permit for the square, then they would have to park at the beach because they couldn't park anywhere over there. It wouldn't clog our streets. I mean, I would support that too. I mean, you know, Knowles Way is a big main street down there, so, but, I mean, I see it too. I mean, they're just lined up, and it isn't just July. I mean, I go to church, you know, year-round, and I see the busyness of that road and the problems. So I would like the residents to have a little rights, just like they do at the, you know, Narragansett Ave. So I would support the square then. I'd like to amend that, Glenna.
I just don't know what we have covered already.
No, it's true, because then they're going to come back, and it's going to be another
Just
street.
like last year.
Yeah.
So, or 2 years, or whatever it was.
Yep.
It's the art of collaboration right there.
All right. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, it makes sense. If there's problems with the parking and we're trying to fix all these problems, they're all kind of interrelated, so we're trying to make it better so that people aren't clogging roads and causing accidents. And we heard from people in the community come forward, so I'm in favor of the ordinance, but does it push the problem? I don't know. Will people walk that extra? I don't know what people will do. I mean, maybe we see what they do.
So the streets, like you're saying, the streets like Gaspy,
right?
Greenbrier.
Yep.
Are those all restricted already?
I don't know. Mark, do you know?
They are restricted?
They are, okay. So that
They are.
bottom square is
okay.
taken care of, it's the top square that's not.
There's no regulations for those streets, I'm not sure. No restrictions? Okay. It's that block is open to park right now, I guess.
This kind of raises another issue that Chief referenced. For the first time this week or last week, I saw the parking ordinance
Needs to be
book,
cleaned up.
which I'd never seen before.
It's insanity, isn't it?
It is. It's not online. It's really just a binder, which Ann has to keep track of, which is almost impossible. I think down the line, probably should computerize or codify that somehow to get it online so we can tell.
Consolidate it.
Consolidate it. It's really, to keep track of where you're going, you have to compare 87 to 96 to 2011 and go back and forth, and it's literally like a maze or a
Mental
jigsaw.
gymnastics.
Right. But that's for a different time. Should we, at this point, we should either revisit the whole neighborhood or approve part of it. Obviously, Mr. Kennedy wants action now, and deservedly so, but maybe it's a bigger issue in total, too.
What do you recommend, Mark?
It would need 2 readings, so if you're gonna, my suggestion is if you're inclined to expand it, do it now, otherwise it's gonna be the summer's over by the time we get it adopted, so, you got 3 options for it. You do nothing, adopt it as suggested just for, Knowles Way, or expand it to try and pick up whatever it is, Coffee, Francis, Greenbrier, Erie, Pontiganset Parkway. I think Sewell is covered, or is it not covered? Sewell, or Sewell? That's covered. So it'd be adding those or not adding those to it. And you could modify the resolution that's before you to add the same restriction for those streets that comprise the block, if you so choose.
I'd like to make a motion to modify as Mark just read.
And I'll second that.
Is it,
So
I'm sorry.
what do you mean by the
What
block?
did I miss?
Can you list the
No, I
streets
did
for
not.
the block?
I was just looking at the, excuse me, Council, I was just looking at the map and doing the square. So it'd be Coffee Avenue, Francis Avenue, Greenbrier Road, Pontiganset Parkway, Erie Road, Sewell's covered, Angel's covered, I believe. You got a couple of spur roads off there, Judith, Ashbrook, Aspen, and DeAngelis. I don't know, those have any regulations on them right now? I don't know.
I know Gatsby does.
Does any of that infringe on the church parking?
No, Gatsby does. Doesn't Gatsby have permits, by permit? Yeah.
I think it does. I think this, the lower part does. I'm looking at the left side as I'm facing, and I'm not sure those 3 or 4 roads Ann just pointed out were included or not.
Well, why don't we,
Gatsby has permits right now, Ann advises me.
Sounds like this whole thing needs to be cleaned up and maybe organized. But even for, can we do Glenna's amendment for this time, and then maybe the chief and you, Pam, can organize the ordinances and the restrictions down the road?
I think Mark's challenge is not knowing whether to include, could we just say including Judith, Ashbrook, Aspen, and DeAngelis if no ordinance is
Not
found to
already
apply?
regulated.
Nothing
Right.
exists.
Yep. So it's Sewell up is what we're talking about, Wester, looks like if the, yeah, that's gonna be those roads included that are not included already.
Okay, is that your motion, Glenna?
It is.
And then I'm going to second that.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0, I believe. Number 16, a motion to discuss the allocation of an additional $5,000 from Fund 43 to the Galilee Fishing Tournament and Seafood Festival.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Mr. Mannix.
So the Galley Advisory Committee, which meets once a month, has the Fund 43 is Fund 43 is money that comes in from landing fees at Galilee, and then those are allocated out to pay for CSOs, police details, some beautification over in Galilee. So it's one of our funds. And so they put their heads together, and Steve Wright put his head together with the committee, and last year they had allocated $5,000 to the Seafood Festival, which is just after Labor Day, and it's going to be the 3rd year of the Seafood Festival, and the committee asked at the last meeting, they moved to increase that amount for increased marketing for the event. But the reason I have discussed the allocation is because there's 2 options, and Laura may come up to discuss these 2 things. If we add the 5,000, we have to put an ordinance, we have to change our budget ordinance. The other option is that we could take it, I think, from contingency to satisfy what the Galley Advisory Committee is asking. So that was the process that they went through in requesting this. So basically, what's left in their trust balance of the 43 funds would just be decreased by 5,000 to allocate this. But Laura, if you want to come up and if you have a suggestion between those 2.
You actually have a third option. The third option would be just to not give them additional funds and have them rework their budget as it was passed within the line item. So it'd be less in police detail or less in another line item and leave them level funded. The other option, as Matt said, would be we would give an additional appropriation. However, it was passed by ordinance, so we have to rewrite to add the additional funding and change the budget ordinance with 2 passages. The third option would be if you want to give them the additional funds out of the general fund, there is that contingency money. And so all it would be is we would allocate additional funding straight out of contingency. It would not require a budget ordinance revision. Those are your three options.
Could you advance it out of contingency? And I know we'll have a budget ordinance amendment before the year's out, refund it out of that when you do whatever changes you have to
I
make.
just would not bring the budget ordinance to the council. They can vote to appropriate it, but they may not see the budget ordinance for a little while.
So then you're gonna replenish the contingency. If you do a budget ordinance amendment, as you will, I'm sure, before the year is out, we seem to do them every year.
Possibly, possibly not.
Okay, well, if you do, you could then replenish it. If not, you wouldn't, it'd be out
You
of
could just leave it out of contingency.
I'd prefer that option or, you know, the modification to the budget line item aspect of their respective budget, right? So I don't know what they've got planned for the year, but working within what's been allocated, or conversely, I got to believe we're going to have an ordinance.
Right, I think that's take it from the contingency and then have the ordinance do the whole thing afterwards, because.
Which quite honestly, is really no different than making them live within their box now.
Right.
Because they're going to have to pay the contingency back anyway. So they make a choice now.
Right, because it comes
what to
from,
cut.
right, it comes from their trust balance.
Right.
And I said in the thing,
Right.
that's going to get decreased. So it's coming from the fund balance, it's coming from the Fund 43 funds that come from the landing fees, right? We're not taking money from the taxpayer here.
Right.
It's coming from the landing fees. So it's just that these committees, they only meet once a month, right? And I try to encourage these committees to come forward with their ideas, and as you know, and many of them come forward and they have ideas for the budget, but they're not doing this day to day. So some of the committees come forward at the budget session and they say, these are things that have come forward. This obviously came later, we put our heads together afterwards, but I don't want to deny them this, and again, it's not taxpayer money, it's going to be decreased from what's in their trust balance, but they really did follow the process correctly, so.
I have a question, Mr. President. Why do they need the $5,000 more than what was allocated? And isn't that fund used to pay for police overtime budgets and stuff like that? So
Well, it's for-
how can we say that it's not taxpayers' money?
Because it comes from the landing fees. There's a statute where the landing fees in Galilee, about 100,000 come in.
Which is a tax.
Well, but it's not from town taxpayer money, it's from state taxpayer money. So,
That's my point. I mean, so if you don't have any more money in that fund, the
but we
tax.
do.
Yeah, you have $16,000 in there.
Right, so they're saying the increased marketing, it's their third year, they're trying to put together the seafood festival. It's not like it's been done for 10, 20 years. They don't have it down to a science yet.
Yeah, but my question is, why do they want $5,000 more? What are they going to do with that $5,000 more?
I mean, Steve can provide more detail, but it's increased marketing, it's increased advertising for the event.
That's exactly.
Because the attendance was.
That's exactly what it's for, increased advertising. So the $5,000 you're going to appropriate, my understanding at the meeting I attended, that they needed they wanted the $5,000 more for advertising. That's what they're going to do. And I don't think it's a good idea, and I'm not in favor of changing any ordinances to appropriate $5,000 for advertising. I think they can go along with that budget, and perhaps next year they have other options, increase the fees of the users down there, or whatever they're going to do to utilize the money, or in the budget process, appropriate more money and dedicate it to the program then.
Which
And
obviously we will do.
always have to talk about why they want the money. Nobody's talking about this, talking about that.
I said it's the third year of the event, and they're saying the attendance was lower than they would have liked, and they were asking for advertising and increased advertising marketing costs for the process. We don't have to approve it, but I think when we have these committees that come up with ideas that are trying, and Steve talked with them, it was a whole process, they unanimously suggested and recommended it, and the money comes in from the landing fees, again, so that money it's not like we're asking to take $5,000 out of contingency, and the $300,000 contingency is going to be $295.
It's taxpayers' money. It's taxpayers' money. I don't know how else you're going to call it, but that's what it is. It's our tax money. Is exactly what it is.
It's landing fees that come in from Galilee. It's not comes in from the taxes that when we 2.2% last year. It doesn't
No,
come
I
from
didn't
that.
say it came from that fund,
Right,
but it's a resource.
Right. So, Doug, you don't have
It's
to
a
approve
revenue-
it.
I know, I'm just.
Maybe you should, I mean, I think
But
you're.
we were
if-
talking- we're
I'm
all-
not, all right.
We're all
Doug, this
talking
comes
about-
from you who voted for the sewer bond, which was $3 million, okay? Let's be honest here, all right? You voted for the sewer bond, which was down in Jerusalem for $3 million, and you're putting me through the coals for $5,000 for an event that's in its third year where they're
I'm
trying to
not
figure out
putting
what
you
to
to
do.
the coals for
I
anything.
mean, this is a committee, they went through the process of what they're supposed to do. We're supposed to encourage the committees to go this way.
I know, I was at the meeting, and I remember.
Weren't at the Galley Advisory Committee meeting. You were at the
when they
Seafood
dis-
Festival
when-
planning meeting.
Okay, the planning meeting, which was the same discussion, and they wanted 5,000. Wait a minute, that wasn't the question. The question was they needed more revenue to do more advertising. That was the question.
Question,
And
yeah.
how were we going to get the money? That was the question. And now they go to the Galilee Advisory, which is fine, that's what they do. And the Galilee Advisory is coming to us and asking us, although we don't say that right up front, we want $5,000 in addition to the $5,000 we already have given them. And I'm telling you that the reason why they want the $5,000 is for advertising, for the event, to make it bigger and better than last year. They think that the advertising will do that. We're not sure of that. And it was very successful last year. There's no guarantee that the advertising is going to make it a better, more successful event this coming year. And I don't think that we should be doing it. And we shouldn't be changing the ordinances every time we turn around to appropriate that kind of money. And it is tax dollars.
You can keep saying things, that doesn't mean they're true.
Mr. Wojciechowski.
After listening, is there money coming out of the taxpayer's pocket? Is there, and at the end game here, is this $5,000 going to result coming out of taxpayers? That's why it's confusing now, because after all this
Does
argument.
someone want to describe Fund 43 for everybody?
I don't
This is
know
a good
if this-
discussion to have, because people in town need to know what
I
our
don't
funds
know.
are.
Yeah.
We have different enterprise funds, we have different funds like this, and that people, this is why I left the motion on, because I wanted people to have this broader discussion.
This money comes
about-
from the
right.
Block Island boat stand.
All the boat-
The taxes, it's a tax
The
that we
landing
get.
all the landing fees.
To
over there.
maintain Galilee, it's to pick up the trash and beautify Galilee. If they want a flagpole, we put a flagpole up there, or flowers, or whatever it's supposed to be. That's what it is. The way I understand it is that's what the fund is dedicated to do.
So the property owner in Narragansett does not contribute to this fund, right?
Well, probably not, but the point is, if there isn't any money in the fund, then you will, because you still have to supply police officers and those other services for the Port of Galilee, if you take that money away. And we've earmarked that money in the budget process for that purpose, not to divert $5,000 away from that for an advertising campaign.
So you're saying
Simple
now
as
they're
that.
going to take $5,000 away from police protection and put into advertising? Is that what you're saying? Is that what's happening?
No.
That's what it
No,
sounded like.
well, it's because it's incorrect. There's a fund balance in many of these funds, and so this would decrease the fund balance going into the next fiscal year. Approximately, Stan, $100,000 comes in, and about 85 goes out, and that 85 is designated between staff, CSOs, beautification, the flagpole, things like that down in the Galilee area.
So we're not going to have to pay for extra police protection because of
No,
this
because
thing?
that line item's not changing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Wait,
Aye.
what are we
Sorry.
asking? So are we asking for, which option are we talking about? Because that's critical, I think, to how we proceed. So what is exactly the option that we want to pursue?
Well, the motion is just.
The move was the contingency and then replenish the contingency if Laura has to do a budget ordinance change.
My recommendation would be, if I have to do a budget ordinance change, that it actually not come out of contingency, but that it would, with the budget ordinance, it would come out of the fund balance as it is a special revenue fund. So it would reduce the funds available for next year for that special revenue, as opposed to allocating it and paying back the general fund. But knowing that you approve this funding out of fund balance, then when I do my next budget appropriation, I will make that change within it. It just won't come to you at the next council meeting to be read. I will hold off in actually doing the revised budget ordinance. So my recommendation is that you just allocate an additional $5,000 if you so choose. From fund balance of the special revenue fund.
143.
Galloway Landing for the increase marketing in the amount of $5,000.
Makes sense?
Got it.
Okay.
So move.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. Number 17, motion to accept resignations from Jean Kelly and Sylvan Vakaitis and schedule a work session to conduct interviews for the vacant seats in the zoning board of review for July 21st, 2014 at 6:30 p.m.
6:30.
Does that make sense? Someone can make that motion?
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Looks like that's it for tonight. Someone like a motion to adjourn?
6:30.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good night, everybody.